Greetings, mortals, and welcome. Please present your tickets for validation. Thank you. Your existence has been acknowledged, and you have been granted access every Thursday and Friday. You will be accompanying your guides, Krista and Brandy, along with a world-renowned guest. They will be exploring an intriguing tendril of what humans refer to as reality each week, as they strive to advance you further down the path to the truths of your physical earth and what lies on the other side. Remember to please keep your hands and feet in the vehicle at all times, and do not exit until the craft has come to a complete stop.
Hey everybody, welcome. Happy Thursday.
Happy Thursday.
Hey. I'm so ready.
Yay. It's like it's Thursday. It's not done yet.
Well, it is for me. I get a 3-day weekend, so
You are so lucky.
I know. Right? I know, right? I'm excited. But I do want to let everybody know that Saturday at 2 p.m. Central Time, Brandy and I are going to do a members only show. So if you are a member, tune in at 2 p.m. on Saturday. Huh, Brandy?
Exactly. I'll be rushing in from work. But I will be here. I will absolutely be here.
Yes.
And I was saying hi to everybody, and I didn't get to everybody, but if I didn't, I'll be saying hi throughout the show. So
yes. Appreciate everybody being in here tonight and hanging out with us. We always enjoy everybody's company. So real quick, there's a couple things we have to talk about, and then we'll get moving on. There you go, Brandy.
Of course. I'm so excited about this. This is coming up in 2 weeks, people. 2 weeks. We only have limited availability on tickets. So make sure you get your tickets like now. Don't wait till the last minute, because we don't sell them at the door, especially if we're sold out. Just saying. Anyway, we are going to be at Ashmore Estates in Ashmore, Illinois on the 18th to the wee early morning hours of the 19th. What we're going to do is we're going to have conference speakers during the day. We're going to take a break. We're going to feed you dinner, and then we're going to ghost hunt from probably about 7 to 2 a.m. And anybody who has ever ghost hunted, that is a long time. So make sure you get lots of sleep, get your tickets on Eventbrite. Just type in Blondes and Booze, and it should be the first event that pops up. And we'll see you in 2 weeks. I'm excited.
I also pinned it on in chat. And thank you, Spillin.
Thanks, Spillin. There's 5 more people going to be there on Saturday.
Yeah. So I did pin it, the link, if anybody's interested in coming to that event. It's pinned on our chat. And one more thing to talk about, Brandy.
All right. This is in a month. Oh my God. These are all creeping up so quick. In a month, we're going to be in Anniston, Alabama for the Alabama Bigfoot Conference. This event, I can't tell you how affordable this thing is. It's $30 online and $35 at the door. We have some great speakers. With our MC of the day is Tex Wesson. We're going to have Barton Nunnelly, Daryl Denton, of course, us Blondes and Booze. We're going to have Jason McLean, Greg Ogles, Martin Groves, and Bigfoot Michigan Rob. Arg.
That's funny.
I was on the show with him this afternoon, if anybody saw it. So I get that stuck in my head. Become a BMR pirate, and I'm arg. So if anybody ever watches him during the day, you need to, because it kills me. Anyway.
Right. Once again, Spillin, thank you very much for that. We definitely appreciate that. Also, Rich is also a new member, so welcome, Rich.
Welcome, Rich. I said welcome in chat, but if you didn't see it, hi.
Yeah. And then let's do the lineup, and then Josh will be here shortly, and we have Chris waiting backstage. So let's just do the lineup, and then let's get the show rolling.
Oh, yes, absolutely. On Mondays at 8 p.m. Central. I think he's starting at 8:15 now, but it's 8:15. Texas Front Porch with the best host in the world, myself, and that big guy named Tex. On Tuesday nights at 8 p.m. Central, it is Krista. It's Krista on BMR's Beyond BMR. Of course, on Wednesday at 7 p.m., it's Donnie Cho Says Stuff. At 8 p.m., it's Inhumanoids with Barton Nunnelly. On Thursdays at 7 p.m., it's Monica Rollins with Our Paranormal World. At 8 p.m., of course, we're here right now, Blondes and Booze. If you can't get enough of us, you can get us again on Fridays at 7 p.m. Central with Blondes and Booze. On Saturday at 8 p.m., you can catch Krista with Paul from Paranormal Among Us at 8 p.m. Central. On Sundays at 5 p.m. Central, it is Truth or Tinfoil with myself and Randy Gilbert. At 7 p.m., it is Tex and Danielle Diva with their newest episode of Infamous Minds. And don't forget to check out PRT, Paranormal Roundtable. They are live on Friday nights, Sunday nights, Saturday nights, and they have been doing their podcast shows on Tuesdays and Thursdays. But I think he's doing it Wednesdays right now. So make sure you check him out. Make sure you like, subscribe, and hit that notification button.
Yes. So I am going to go ahead and bring up our guest. He looks like he's ready.
He's ready.
Hey. How are you?
I'm doing great. It's good to be here, guys. I wasn't quite sure how this was going to go. I have, like I said, I was in a hotel room with, I'm using the Wi-Fi. It seems to be holding up. So
Right.
You're lucky.
You never know with hotels.
You're real lucky.
Yeah. I just spent an hour and a half lounging by the pool reading Ron Moorhead's new book.
Awesome. Oh, yeah.
Bigfoot Unveiled, which is excellent. And
I haven't got it yet. I can't wait to get it, but I haven't got it yet. And I'm like, man, I wonder what that one's about.
If you like Quantum Bigfoot and you read that, it's kind of like a continuation. The quantum physics stuff kind of, makes my brain melt, but his whole
I
take
get it.
on the phenomenon's great, man. It really is. I think he's making a lot of good salient points in the book. So far so good. I like it. It's decent.
Yeah.
Right.
Late afternoon.
Well, I really like the point because when he first started, he was totally like flesh and blood. And then he's, over time, it's kind of like he's changed all of that. And that is so cool. I really believe that everything is kind of intertwined. I just don't know how yet. Hopefully I'll figure it out.
50 years later, I love the fact, because this is what we have come to believe and experience, is that the spiritual element, and I'll say specifically with the Sasquatch thing, it's such a huge component. I'm convinced of it. And I don't quite know where that goes. I'm not speaking about it like religiously. I think just, like Ron talks about, the ability to try and elevate your vibration level. And I really feel that like a lot of experiencers that have consistent experiences and some degree of communication are people that are vibing on a level that they can, relate, or that allows them some sort of access to what these beings are about and what they're doing, and Ron definitely talks about that in this book, which I get that, when he starts going into the 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th dimension, my eyes start dripping out of my head because I can't wrap my head around all that, but I'm trying,
Right.
Yeah. We were talking about that earlier today, and I'm saying it's kind of like he explains it in a way on the surface level where you can understand, but you really have to kind of dig deep to really understand what he's talking about.
Yeah.
And
it's not like quantum physics for dummies. It's definitely another level there. That's what I need.
It is. It is.
I need it spelled out with simple pictures.
Right.
No stick figures allowed. We're just It's not going to work.
Right.
That stuff. Einstein stuff.
Let's go back and talk about, how did you get in this crazy, into all this weirdness?
Yeah, there you go.
Okay. So when I was 25, which is 31 years ago.
I was going to say it was just 10 years ago, right?
I am trying to age in reverse. But
it was 5, Kristen, 5.
Trying to be nice.
So I was living on the Minnesota-Wisconsin border in a little town called Prescott, Wisconsin. And I had a friend out there that was a huge hunter, a big gun guy, right? So he asked me if I wanted to go out and hunt with him. I grew up in Philadelphia. I'd never hunted in my life, So I agreed. So we went out to a place in Wisconsin. It's near the Wisconsin Dells, which is like a fairly well-known kind of wilderness camping area in like southwestern Wisconsin. And so, it was wintertime, snow on the ground, and we hike out to this spot, and it's on a ridge. Like there's a ridge line, and then a ravine right here, and then it drops down to a creek bed over on this side. And he puts me in a stand of pines. Kind of, there's a clearing, and then the pines are here, and then the ravine's up there. He goes, "Listen, I'm going to climb up this ridge, and I'm going to try and beat some deer down to you and see if you can get a shot." And I just got my license to do it, and I was interested. I love the outdoors, but I'd never hunted. So he takes off, and so about 45 minutes to an hour go by, and I'm freezing, and we're sitting there, and I'm sitting there, and start hearing this grunting noises, right? So I'm thinking that he's beating a deer's coming, right? So I kind of get in position, but instead of coming from the ravine, which is off to as I'm looking out to my left, the noise is coming from the berm that drops down to this creek bed. And as I'm sitting there and I'm listening, I hear footsteps, and then this thing comes over the embankment, probably about 40 yards in front of me. And at first, this is a common thing. At first, I think it's a guy in a black hoodie, and I'm all in an orange vest and all that, and I think, man, that's an idiot. That's a good way to get shot out here, right? I mean, there's nobody around us. We're staying in his buddy's cabin. I mean, it was really remote. And this thing just kept coming, and it comes over the ridge, and it's massive, And other than maybe seeing the Patterson Gimlin, footage when I was young, like I had no interest. I didn't know Bigfoot wasn't even on my mind. You know what I mean? And I see this thing, and it comes over the top, and it's easy 7.5, 8 feet tall. It is 800. It's huge, and I'm thinking, I thought it was a gorilla. Like I didn't know, I'm frozen. I'm petrified. And because the last time I was taught there was no apes living in Wisconsin in the wilds, and I didn't have any idea. And it turns around and it looks directly at me through the trees. It makes a face. It grunts. It turns around and walks right back down. And I didn't run. It walked. I had a good 15, 20 second visual capture of this thing, And so my buddy comes down maybe 45 minutes later, did you see anything? And I'm like, dude, I'm frozen solid, and I'm literally freezing too. And I'm scared to say anything, but I tell him, I said, did you ever see anything? And I explained it to him, and he knew immediately. He said, his family had this cabin in this area for, a couple generations, and they called him the old man of the mountain. His grandfather used to talk about it, and he said, you saw him. And then he said, if you see him, you're always going to see something like that for the rest of your life. They knew it was in their family for years and years, like the stories about it. And so this is long before the digital age. The internet wasn't a thing. And I think I've always thought that people go in a couple different directions when this stuff happens. And this is in hindsight, they either try and divest it from their minds and try and come up with some human logical thing and just try and erase it, or they're traumatized by it. And I don't believe I was ever traumatized by it. I didn't feel it was menacing, but I don't feel like it was menacing me. You know what I mean? It just was menacing. And the third thing is, man, I've been all in with it ever since, man. I got as much as I could read about it. And then, maybe 10 years later, when the internet started to blossom and the ability to research on that level and maybe make some connections with people, blossomed for me. And I was able to take a much deeper dive. I spent years, I've lived all over the country, and I spent a lot of time out in the woods. I've tried to recreate that. And it wasn't until I moved to Arizona 5 years ago that I linked up with a group of guys, a bunch of vets, just solid cats that had a lot going on, and they brought me into the fold, and it kind of flipped my wig because things started to really ramp up in the last 5 years, and that's kind of the abridged version of it.
Wow. So I mean, like, you never really even thought about Bigfoot, like, or anything like that before. Were you a believer of ghosts or anything like that, or were you one of those that?
It's funny that, so I've had ghostly encounters since I was a child, and some interesting ones too. So, I mean, I always had some kind of, esoteric belief system, as well as I was brought up, in a pretty devout Christian household as well. So there was always that nagging at the back of my head on top of it. But yeah, I think I always kind of believe that some of us are tuned in. And I steer clear of the paranormal or the occultist paranormal things. Like, that stuff unnerves me. And I mean, I've been out in the dark in the middle of nowhere with Sasquatches running around, and I'm fine. But like, some of those other things like spook me. I really try not. I got enough on my plate with this. I steer clear. Like, I saw you guys were doing a ghost hunting. I wouldn't do that. You know what I mean? That seems like something that I wouldn't enjoy. You know what I mean? So
Right.
Yeah.
I gotcha. Yeah. We it was kind of funny. You talked about, the ghost thing. I got to tell a quick story. So today, we have big cubicles, right? And the girl in front of me, she was on the phone, literally talking to someone from 8 o'clock in the morning until it was well after noon, until she went to lunch. And it was a personal phone call. And she was talking to some guy. She was talking about dancing, their first kiss. I'm like, oh my God, they're going to make me puke. They're really going to make me puke, So I thought, you know what? I'm going to put on YouTube and I'm going to play like an exorcism or something. Then I was like, no, I better not do that, because then I'll conjure something. So I did. I put on, you can find car motor sounds on YouTube. So I played it just as
anything on YouTube these days, right?
Right. So I tried to annoy her as much as she was annoying me.
Did it work?
Well, she finally went to lunch.
And she got paid.
She's like, I got to get out of here. I'm going to lunch.
Yeah.
I think the exorcism thing would have been better.
Well, when you were talking about the ghost thing, because I was like, man, maybe I should, because people, they talk, I mean, there's some weird stuff that goes on you can hear. And I was like, man, that would really freak her out. And then I was like, I could conjure something, though, and I don't want to do that. So
let's just not do that.
Right. So I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt with my story.
I don't think you interrupted at all. I was trying to think about where to take this whole story next, if that's what you guys would like, I mean,
yeah, let's go. Like you said, you go out and you're active out in the woods.
I am. So when people think of Arizona, they usually think of, saguaro cactuses in the desert, but that's not. I live in a very forested area. I live up in the mountains in north central Arizona.
Okay.
And the guys that I go out with live fairly close by to me, but they live in a section of Arizona known as the Mogollon Rim, which is a huge, almost like a semi-Grand Canyon. It's a huge cliff with it runs for about, I don't know, 120 miles. The Highway 260, which runs kind of from central Arizona straight across to New Mexico, runs beneath it, and it intersects with 3 national forests called
oh, wow. Okay.
Coconino National Forest, Apache Sitgreaves National Forest, and Tonto National Forest. And I mean, vast wildernesses. I mean, it's actually one of the spots that we go to is probably within 15 miles of where Travis Walton was abducted on a lateral topic. But and I've had some weird UFO stuff happen out there too. You can't be out there as long as we have and not have seen a bunch of other things. It's almost impossible, you know. But
You're right.
It's a beautiful area, and so I linked up with these guys when I moved out here. I was friends with a man by the name of Kevin Keeney, who was part of an online kind of a Sasquatch community, but a closed one, small. And I'd known Kevin for a few years. And when I moved out to Arizona, I mean, he actually officiated my wedding last May, believe it or not. Like, we're really close. And so he was, he had a lot of interesting things going on. And he invited me out with him. And the first time I went out, we went out up on top of the Mogollon Rim, which is, you know, desolate. And I spent 4 days out there with Kevin that changed my life. I mean, I kind of witnessed and interacted and experienced just the fantastical, another level than anything I've had in other areas in my life. I've had visual sightings, and I've had, you know, gifting and all that stuff that people kind of do when they start out doing this. You know what I mean? And I spent years trying to take pictures and get them on video and get them on camera, and we stopped doing that. And so I came back from that, and there's 5 of us that are kind of in this group. It has a name, which I'm really hesitant to say because we try and keep it as a collective a little bit more anonymous than, you know, whatever we do individually, like me being on the show or whatever. But it's known as the Arizona 4, and we've had for about 4 years like a constant kind of steady communication with Steve Istow, and that was how that name kind of got glossed, and from a, you know, it kind of gained us a bit of notoriety, which I don't think we were really looking for. But it's cool too, you know what I mean? And these guys are fantastic. One of them is my friend Chuck, is the former fire chief of Payson, Arizona for 30 years. These guys are all, like, you know, have a lot of credibility and cachet in our communities, and yet we've all bonded over this shared experiences that we've had consistently for years. It's really special. It's really cool.
Just rude. Well, I was just going to say, I'm sorry. I don't mean to be rude. Wolf won't actually be on tonight. I got a message from Anthony, and he's not feeling real good. So everybody just keep him in your prayers tonight. So
Wolf's not coming on?
No, he's not feeling good right now.
He's not feeling really well at all. So
Anthony just
recruited me for this adventure and left me twisting in the wind.
I'm sorry.
Hope you feel better, Josh.
We'll get him another time.
Yes.
Oh, I know.
So, wow. Okay.
So yeah, you know, I've had some amazing experiences. I guess I will relate the most incredible thing that's ever happened to me in regards to this, because it's a great story, and I think you guys will appreciate it. So in July of 2021, I was in an industrial accident where I worked, and I crushed, mangled, then amputated my right hand at the wrist. I mean, just
wow.
Show it to you. Obviously, there's a photo on now, but it was a catastrophic injury, like something that happens to other people, you know. So I was hospitalized for like almost 3 months straight.
Wow.
I had 22 surgeries, and like this incredible orthopedic doctor and a vascular surgeon kind of Frankensteined my hand back together. I mean, it was a devastating wound. It travels at my arms, it was really bad. It affected my whole upper right extremity, my shoulder, my forearms, and my hand. And so that happened in July of 21. So in October, I get out of the hospital, and my hand is strapped to my chest. You know, it's with huge gauze and wrappings. And I just had the finger amputated like months after it happened because it wasn't feeling right. And I was about as low as I've ever been, like emotionally, spiritually, and physically. And so Kevin swings by and he goes, dude, why don't you come out with us this weekend, right? And We're going to a place. We have names for all our locations. And we're going to a place called Crazy Town, which is it's north of Roosevelt Lake, off the Young Highway in the Mazatlan Mountains. It's a place where a man by the Mitch Waite, who was kind of like one of the first Sasquatch YouTubers, used to do his research. We actually knew him a little bit before he passed away, and that was one of the spots that he kind of turned us on to a long time ago, right? So I'm like, I don't want to go. I'm like, Kev, man, I can't even pull my pants up. You know what I mean? Like, I'm one-handing everything. I can't tie shoes. I can't do any of that, and I'm still in a significant degree of pain. And he's like, Chris, I'll set up a 10-man tent. We'll throw 2 cots into it. You know, just all you got to do is come, you know? And I'm like, okay. What's up, brother?
Well, what's up, man? What's going on, Chris?
You're supposed to be resting.
Yeah.
He looks like he's resting.
I just told you for you to get some rest, man. Take the night off.
I'm in the middle of my hand story.
Go ahead.
So I agree. We go out, and it's me and Kev and another guy named and Chuck, the retired fire chief guy. So we go out, set up, and we have like no activity at all. I mean, there's maybe a twinkle light, or I mean, there was really just nothing, you know, and that's fine. That doesn't, you know, there's no guarantees anytime you go anyway, you know. But I'm just like so grateful to be out with in the nature, and just be out of the hospital and be back out doing what I'm really passionate about, even though I didn't know how it was going to go. So, and it's chilly. October, 9,000, 9,500 foot elevation. It's cold at night. I mean, it gets down to the 20s, teens, or a little bit. It's up there. So that night I lay down in the tent, right? And we got a little heater going. It's pretty comfortable. And I drift off. And at some point, a couple hours later, I get awakened to this feeling of like, I've told Josh this story. You know what a TENS unit is? It's one of those kind of things that exactly. Like somebody had stuck one on the back of my neck, and they cranked it all the way up to like maximum output, you know. And I get this like electrical charge that goes from my neck down to my feet and back up my body, and it didn't hurt, but it was intense, you know. And so I've had that zapping phenomenon happen many, many times. This was like that, but on another level completely. And in my mind, like I believe that it's the forest people and that they're doing what they do. And, you know, everybody that says they know what these things are doing, they really don't. Nobody knows. It's all conjecture. So I drift back off to sleep. And the next morning I wake up, and I had taken the sling off when I sleep just because my arm falls asleep, whatever. So I go out to relieve myself, and Kevin and Chuck are starting a morning fire out by, you know, away from the tents. And so I go to relieve myself about 20 feet from where they were. Now, I'm wearing bibs with drop-down zippers in the front, and I unconsciously take my right hand, like muscle memory, and I grab the zipper and I zip it down. And then I realize what I just done. Like the injury was such that the flexor tendons had been ripped out of my forearm. So I didn't have any tendons to manipulate my fingers at all. None.
Right.
And I realized what had happened. And then I start to gingerly twist my arm. I couldn't pronate or supinate my forearm at all. And I had no pain in my shoulder, which was pretty trashed. No pain in my hand, which is unbelievable. And I had regained a degree of function that was like medically impossible. And so I realized this, and I start to sob, like on the spot, like just this uncontrollable feeling of overwhelming relief and just all the trauma and everything that I'd just been through. And you know, Kevin and Chuck are watching me, and I walk down the trail a little bit to try and compose myself, because I'm just so freaked and just I can't believe it. And I know that they did this. I mean, I know they did. And I say out loud and also in my head, you know, thank you. I'm so grateful for what you've done. And as those words came out of my mouth, I get hit with this projection of love and compassion that completely envelops me. And it wasn't coming from within. It was being projected onto me in like an emotional force through my body. Mm-hmm. And it was profound. And I think it altered me as a human being, because I think, like, you know, at my age, I think we have some idea of what, like, you know, emotional maturity is and love is. And this is something on a completely different level. You know, it made me want to strive to be more like that in my everyday life. You know what I mean? And so we're going on 3 years from that, and I've never had the pain's never come back. And this is a crazy thing. I mean, there were some ethical issues here because this is a work injury, and I'd already been rated fully disabled on my right side, and there was a lot of money involved. And I changed orthopedic doctors because I didn't even know how to approach that with the guy who did all the 22 surgeries. So I just walked away from it. You know, I think if I had been a perfect human being, I would have acknowledged that I'm nowhere near in the amount of stress, trauma, and pain that I was in. But I didn't do that. You know, I through enough. I felt like I could justify that thought, and thinking, like, 3 months of my life I just spent completely. It changed my life. You know, the injury changed my life. But do
you think you were actually touched by literally, like, touched by an angel, or?
You know,
that, you know,
Marzulli asked me the same thing. Mm-hmm. And I believe that these beings, and let me preface this by saying that my segment of the Sasquatch Bigfoot phenomenon does not encompass the entire spectrum of experiences that occur. You know, people have negative encounters and negative experience. I believe them. I know they do. You know, I think that this is just our segment of it. I don't think they're all the same. I don't fall into the a lot of different theories that are out there. I steer clear of that stuff. You know, there was a time where I used to think Scott Carpenter was, you know, had hit the nail on the head, and these things were definitely. I don't believe that anymore. I really don't believe that. Has not been my experience. You know, so do I think I was touched by an angel? No, I believe that they have the power to do some healing, and I think that that's what they did to me. You know, and you know, do I know that 100%? No, I don't think anybody knows anything 100%, but that has been what I believe. You know, I believe that what we're interacting with, I know this, are you know, they're Christ oriented. And that's hard for a lot of people to swallow, but that's been our experience, and not just mine. That's been, I think they revere the name of Christ. They revere God, and again, that doesn't encompass all of them at all. You know, I'm sure there's ones out there that are just the opposite. Who knows, man? You know, but yeah, I don't think it was an angel. I think it was them.
Wow, that's incredible. Really.
I would really classify that as almost a near-death experience. I really would. Oh, you know, you could have lost your life just easily. And, you know, a lot of people think that you have to die and come back to have a near death. No, near death is you almost did it too. You were almost killed, or you almost died.
Yeah, I was within seconds of me dying. I mean, I got pulled into a giant chemical agitator like the size of your garage. And if I didn't get my hand out when I did, it would have taken my whole arm and my whole body, and would have turned me into saltwater taffy. You know, it was,
that's what I mean.
Oh, it's crazy. It's crazy. And then on a side note, like, I've been in recovery for, you know, opiate addiction for years. And I was put back on these heavy opiate medications that I had to go through a withdrawal again that I never, ever thought those things would ever happen to me, you know? And I give all that glory to my own creator and to God, because I leaned into that and I never went backwards. But
amen.
Gone either way. I can remember, you know, they say, oh, you know, God never gives you anything more than you can handle. You know what I mean? And then I can remember coming to after the first 4 days of surgery and looking up and going, you know, you're really cutting this close, man. And, you know, it was a lot. I have another great story on the accident if you want to hear it.
Absolutely.
So I told you, I come down to Phoenix on Thursdays, and I go to a lot of 12-step meetings, and still do. Years and years later, I'm really active in that in community, And so there was this guy that I knew, but I wasn't good friends with him, but I knew him, and he was missing a right hand. His name was also Kevin Criswell. And so I pull into my house one day, and I hear a car honking behind me. And I turn around, and it's this guy, Kevin, right? So I jump in his car, and we're chopping it up for a little while. And I said, Kev, I got to ask you, man, like, how did you get through? Because he lost his hand as well in a motorcycle accident when he was clean and sober. I said, Kev, how did you get through that, man? Like, how did you get, Chris, I just leaned into God. I leaned into the program. I leaned into Christ. And I got through it.
Yeah.
12 hours later, I cut my hand off. Like that. I'd never talked to him about this. And literally, like, he showed up in my driveway after my shift from work. And at 8:20 the next morning, I lost my hand. They reattached it, but I went through that type of injury. And I can remember coming to in the hospital after I went through 28 hours, 4 days in a row in a medically induced coma, right? And I came to, and everything that man said to me the day before just resonated in my head, because I was like, there was no talking my way out of this one. You know what I mean? It was just like something I had to go through. So that was divinely inspired conversation. I believe that there's no coincidences, and I think I always felt that I was being prepared in hindsight for what was coming. You know what I mean? And I was given like the gift of his words to kind of get me through that initial phase of it.
Absolutely. And when you actually feel that change, because I know what you mean, like, when it's like this, it's like your whole life changes just by the flip of a switch, So I get what you're saying 100%. Yeah.
I'm going to take that a step further. So like, here's what the amount of doors that injury opened up for me, and the way my life changed in some of the most incredible ways. I could never have conned, planned, or manipulated my life into the position that it's in now. I don't just mean, materially, I'm financially solvent. I met my wife as a result of this.
Wow.
Like, if I had my dream, it was to have a beautiful, wonderful partner and live in the mountains of Arizona and be able to devote my life to helping guys get clean and sober, and to researching Sasquatch and Bigfoot. And that's literally what I have. It's, I'm just perfect now, but it's, I've been given so much, and I've been so blessed. Like, I don't wish the pain on anybody, but I will say that the experience of it, it changed my thinking, and it changed the way I approach life in a huge way,
Yeah. Yeah. Does it change how when you're out in the woods doing research, has it changed your way?
In a lot of ways, I think all of us are pretty spiritual guys. The guy Chuck, who I talked about, like, he's been an investigator for, believe it or not, the BFRO since like 2010. And he was a straight up aper back in the day. And I just make it on his knees and praise every day. Like, seriously, every one of us has had this like spiritual awakening to some degree. That's a direct result of being out there with them. I don't think we consider ourselves researchers anymore. I think we're just experiencers on a journey, and that's really what it is. We don't, like, this will sound crazy, but about 4 years ago, we were asked to put our cameras down and put our audio equipment away. Asked, like, mind spoken, asked to. And we did it. And when we did that and we showed we were doing it, everything changed. Everything changed with them, with the amount of interaction and the type of interaction, which is kind of a catch-22 if you're public. And, everybody still gets jazzed up about pictures and video and proof and evidence. I don't give a crap about that stuff anymore. I just don't care.
Right.
You don't need to believe me. It doesn't matter.
Right.
It doesn't matter. It really doesn't. Like, if you know, and that's the way we lead. That's how we lean into it now. We keep hoping that I think every year we get maybe a little bit more insight you know. But again, it's all just these giant jigsaw puzzle pieces, and you know, yeah, I mean, you said it earlier that it's all interconnected, you know, and like the spiritual side of this thing, maybe the ufology, some of the occult things. There has to be a common thread that runs through all of it, you know, that we just don't have the ability to initially perceive or see. That's probably what we're doing here right now, just trying to understand and share our experiences and understanding with each other, because we don't all have the same narrative, you know.
No, we don't. We don't. Yeah, yeah. What are your thoughts of Dogman?
So, you know, back when I was actively taking pictures and filming and going out there doing that, I'm sorry, you can't be out there doing this, trying to catch these things on camera and not see a lot of other things, you know? And
right.
So I think I've taken some pretty solid pictures of Dogman back in the day. You know, that goes into such theory. What do we, you know, I mean, you know, there's so many different roads you can go down with some of these hybrid human entities, right? You know, because I mean, we hear Dogman and obviously Sasquatch, and then there's the goat-headed ones and the lion-headed ones, you know, and they're talked about in other writings, and so there's only a couple of. I believe in them. I mean, I've never seen a physical one ever, but I know many people that have, including Bettina. You know, right. I believe her 100%. So I think that, you know, we go down these roads, and then, you know, there's always looking at these things through a biblical lens, which has merit and value, but I think it's narrow-minded too. I think that there's more to it than that, or that that doesn't flesh it out enough. The Book of Enoch fleshes it out more, but it doesn't. But I think there's been some degree of, you know, genome tampering, and Ron talks about it in his book. I was just reading a whole chapter about some of these hybrids, and, you know, his theories on these beings of light and multiple other entities that have shown up on this gem of a world and played with our DNA and played with the DNA on this planet. And I think that the Dogmen are probably the fruits of that labor. You know, I don't think they're the same thing as the forest people, but I think they're connected somehow. I mean, they seem to have a lot of the same type of abilities that they have, you know, perhaps the cloaking, and it seems like the laws of traditional physics don't really apply to a lot of these things, you know.
Yeah.
I believe in them, you know. I've heard a lot of really negative encounters, you know. Like, you have to listen to
a lot of them, sure.
Dogman encounters, you know.
Right. Same thing, you know, people, like you said, a lot of negative ones, but a lot that weren't so negative, you know. So why? You know, why was, like, Bigfoot Michigan Rob, he's in chat. He had an awful Bigfoot encounter. And
I've heard some of his stories. I mean, I'm familiar with him.
And then you hear, you know, like Brandy and I, you know, we didn't. Ours wasn't bad at all. You know, so why? You know, I mean, it's just questions like that run through our minds. And honestly,
I always think that I love the idea that we're dealing with a people, you know, and, you know, and that's an easy way to explain a lot of that, is that there's good ones, there's bad ones, and there's indifferent ones, right? And I think the crapshoot is you just don't know which one you're going to run into. You know what I mean? And you know, and even like I used to argue with the Nephilim stuff, like, you know, if the Sasquatch people were descended from some Nephilim hybrid, you know, like, it's just because you're German doesn't make you a Nazi. And is just because maybe you're descended from a being not of God, does that mean you're automatically locked into that paradigm of there's no goodness in them as an individual or as an entity? I don't believe that. You know, I think they're more like human beings in that way, that there's those that are devout, those that are evil, and those that could give a shit, you know?
Right.
My language.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I think it's right along the lines of like a canine, you know, because some people have dogs that are very nice, and other people have dogs that aren't so nice. You don't know until you come up on them what you're dealing with.
That's a great. I got mauled by a Great Dane when I was a kid, so I've always had this fear of big dogs. You know what I mean? And I don't like pit bulls, and I don't like Rottweilers. And now I own a Great Pyrenees that's like 150-pound juggernaut, and I got a Heeler Roddy mix that's an absolute adorable. So I I worked through that fear, but that's a great point. You don't know what's clicking in these dogs' heads half the time. You don't just go running
Yeah,
up
you
to them,
don't.
right?
You don't. I mean, they could be just sitting there, and you're like, is this?
Yep.
I mean, think about every mailman and every UPS and Amazon driver. They're walking up and they're like, "Are you a nice dog? I hope you're a nice dog."
I used to
Same
live in the
thing.
hood many, many moons ago. I had this neighbor that was from Puerto Rico, and he had this rabid-looking, pit bull, and he used to tie it to his electrical meter so the electric man couldn't come up and read it. And he could never, that's how he avoided paying his electric bill for years.
Oh my gosh.
It's grimy but funny.
Wow.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
Wow.
Desperation is
my
the
dad
mother
had
of invention,
my
man.
dad had a friend. Yeah, my dad had a friend who had a dog. Now this was just a black dog, and I couldn't tell you what it was. Actually, it reminded me of mud, but it was pure black, kind of like a German Shepherd shape, but it had yellow eyes. They called it
Yellow
Ozzy.
eyes scare me.
Yeah, they called it Ozzy. It was as mean as anything. I think that dog didn't even like itself.
Ozzy.
Yeah, they called it Ozzy. And like I said, I don't think this dog even liked itself. Didn't like nothing, nobody, even itself. It'd bite itself just because it was mad.
Mm-hmm.
That's insane. I always
I
thought,
know.
I had to say, like, on the Dogman thing, Scott Carpenter, may he rest in peace, probably had the greatest live footage of a Dogman entity I've ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
And so obviously they're out there and they're real. I mean, that was one of the most incredible videos ever, but it had this little, like, kind of gremlin-y, I think they call it down south an apple sprite, on its shoulder, whispering into its ear. It's such a crystal clear thing. It's not somebody could have even, like, fabricated, because who would have even thought to do that, But it's kind of like Patty having boobs, like, come on, man, like, who's going to actually make an ape suit with a rack on it? It's just not going to
That's
happen.
what I said. That would be a little bit more difficult, don't you think?
Right? Exactly. Nobody would
Right.
even, like, thought to be that creative, I don't think. Maybe, but I doubt it. I mean, I know that show, that clip is about as legit as it's ever going to get. It's never been duplicated, though. I'll say that much. That's for sure. But I look at,
Right.
So yeah, I look at Scott's stuff, and I always thought that, I really, like I said before, there was a time where, like, if I were to go down the Nephilim theory road, like, that checked a lot of boxes, man.
Mhm.
It just,
Mhm.
well, it would make sense if they were half, angelic being and half human, that they might have some abilities further than ours, and blah, 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 and all those children. Yep, check. And then, like Kevin says, don't let your paradigm dictate your experience, but let your experience dictate your paradigm. You know what I mean? Like, don't take what you've been fed and taught as, without questioning it, as canon, and then allow what my experiences have been to kind of dictate where my narrative goes. You know what I mean? And so I've tried to lean into that and invest my thinking that way, and it's paid off in a huge way, because I'm a Christian, a faulty one, but I still believe in Christ and I still worship. And so my Christian sensibilities get rankled over some of these things that happen to us, because every one of these biblical lens guys, like, oh, you're being deceived, and maybe I am, like, the fallen will come as beings of light, and okay, I know those things, man. Like, I hear this 8 billion times a day. Sometimes it's like, okay, like, what do you really think after 31 years? Like, I haven't looked at all of that, you know what I mean? And I just, am I capable of being greatly deceived? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Could these things absolutely hoodwinking me? But like Kev said to me after I got healed, he said, Chris, do you believe that something was evil and a Nephilim descended would A, care enough about a human being to heal them of a wound and an injury like that, or B, be able to project love and compassion? Like, would they even have that ability? I don't know, but it seems kind of doubtful to me.
Mm-hmm.
That changed my thinking, like the last bit of doubt that I maybe had there, So I don't know, though.
Right.
It's all theory.
It is. It is.
The longer I've been around this, the less I think I know for sure, man. You know?
Yep, there you go. I do have a question for you. When you go out in the woods, have you ever seen any like orbs or anything like that out there?
Many, many times. Many
What
times.
do you believe they are?
Oh, man. I think there's a couple different possible answers for that. So we have this phenomenon that occurs when we're out up on the rim. We call them twinkle lights, right? And they're almost like little LED lights, like red, blues, and greens that pop off in the forest at night, and they're pronounced. And when we see them, it usually seems to like herald their presence, or it happens when they're around, right? And you know, that's a lot of campfire theory going on with that, because this happens consistently, and
Yeah.
many times after that, we'll see orbs as well, like, and some of our spots are pretty fantastic. And we've had, slow moving trailing orbs going through the forest, multicolored ones. And so we always ask, because I think we believe that, I think one of the things that I think we all agree on, because all of us do not agree on everything, believe that, is that these things are able to change themselves and be in an energy state.
Yeah.
And so we've always thought that perhaps when we do see the orbs, that is actually the forest people in an altered state that they can seem to be able to do that we can't do, because we've seen them like be there physically and then blink out. You know what I mean? Like just literally, now you see me, now you don't type stuff, and you see them enter trees and come out. I mean, just
Right.
all kinds of different things. So I always thought that they were sentient. Whatever the orbs are, I think that there's a sentience behind them. I think there's multiple facets of it, though, because when you look at some of the UFO stuff, right, and a lot of people think that they could be like some sort of prodding drone for something that's actually controlling them remotely. That they kind of look like they're doing that, and other ones you see that seem like they have like a mind of their own, and they're kind of picking their way through different areas and examining and looking. So I think that the orb thing. I think there's multiple answers for that in the long run. I don't think anybody, until one of these things comes out and sits down at the next campfire with us and has a beer and starts breaking it down, and that ain't happening. Like we're never, nobody's going to know.
Right. Brandy and I, we've had experiences with the orbs ourselves. And my first orb that I ever saw with my eyes, not in pictures, but with my eyes, was at a haunted location. It was at an event that we were holding. And I always assumed, them with ghost. However, we were at the LBL, and the first time I ever saw orbs out in the middle of the woods where there was nobody, and it's 25-degree weather out there, nobody was out there. And it wasn't just myself that saw it, but there was like 10 of us there. We were all seeing different sizes.
That's great. We get that validation, right?
Exactly. And so that was pretty crazy. And then here, our last trip to the LBL in March, we also saw more orbs and like shimmery things out in the woods. So I can't tell you what that is.
Very strange.
But I don't just associate them with ghosts any longer.
No, like I said, I think that there's enough orb lore in multiple different arenas, in some of the fringe topics, some of the occult stuff, obviously the UFO stuff. The Sasquatch and the orbs kind of go hand in hand, right? Like there, here are so many different encounters. I saw one and orbs were floating around its head, whatever. You know what I mean? Like there's so many. Somebody posted, one of them on the chat, that the Wiccans identified orbs as the Fae, right? So let's open that up, right? I mean, you go back into like the Appalachians and then back to ancient Ireland, and they talk about the will-o'-wisp, which is they're talking about an orb. Just it's kind of different terminology for the exact same phenomenon, right? And all the root folklore stories, Rip Van Winkle and Lost Time, or some of the different entities, leprechauns. We're all talking about the exact same phenomenon, just with different terminology, but it's the same stuff. The things that are attributed to these entities talking about the same things, man. You know, it's literally the same stuff as what we're seeing out there now, just given a different name. You know, and the Apaches, where I live, used to refer to the hairy man. They call him the hairy man, but it's known where we live as the Mogollon monster. You know what I mean? Which is just another Bigfoot legend given a different name. You know,
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm big into the native stuff. You know, I mean, I live around it, which is great because I can pick their brains on occasion, and I get to see a lot of. I get to meet a lot of people that have really kind of gone down that road in a big way. You know.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I got another question for you. What are your thoughts on gifting?
So I think we don't do it anymore and haven't for a long time. And I won't judge anybody that does because I think it's a common part of the process of researching in the journey of researching. You know, when you realize that if I leave some beef jerky on a rock and I come back the next day and there's an Indian arrowhead on the rock and the beef jerky's gone, oh, that's pretty cool. You know, that happened to me.
Right.
I think that it's not necessary. We don't gift anymore. We haven't for about 4 years. But we used to have a gift stump and we would bring up like powdered donuts and leave it. I mean, all kinds of all that stuff, all of that stuff, you know, and I don't think it's necessary, you know. I think it's one thing I do, like if I go to a new spot, I go out looking for petroglyphs a lot. There's so much of that in the Southwest, you know, and so if I go into a new area and I get that, like, I feel like I've always had like a sensitivity to the vibe of a spot in an area. Like I can feel it, you know. And when I feel like that they may be around, I always keep some tobacco with me because that's what the Navajos did. That's what the Apaches did. And I leave it and I say in my mind, it's in friendship. It's not a worshipful thing. I'm leaving this to you as a token of my friendship, you know, with the great creator go with you, and I just go about my business, man. You know what I mean? And so that's about the level of gifting that I still do, but we don't do it anymore. I don't think it's again, you don't know who you're dealing with, you know, like if you're setting a precedent where it looks like you're bowing in homage to them, I don't think that's good, you know. I don't think that's what we're supposed to be doing, you know. We were given as man dominion over the earth, man, and that's everything in it. And I don't bow before anybody, but I don't want anybody bowing to me either, you know.
Right. No, absolutely. I feel like gifting food, I don't think people should do that because then, you know,
they're expecting it.
Right. Well, yeah. And we all get cranky when we're hungry, right? You know, so they're going to get some good food and come back there and it's not there one time. Well, guess what? You're going to be in trouble. However, like people leave, you know, different items, non-edible items out. I don't really see a problem with that. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but.
You know what we still do? So we usually set up a pretty decent kitchen at our campsite, you know, like a big table. We keep a kind of a propane coffee pot out there. And a lot of times we'll leave some food on the table. We don't put it in a special place. And, you know, Kevin or one of us will say, hey, this is for you or your young ones. You're welcome to it. Every once in a while it gets taken. Very, you know, sometimes it doesn't, whatever. I will say that's the extent of our gifting. Like, it's not like
right.
We used to be like a ritual. Oh, we got to go down to the gift stump at 5:30 or whatever. You know, it's just not something we do.
Right. Well, and that's the thing too, because you don't know, like with food wise, you know, you're putting it out in the forest, you know, there's raccoons, there's bear, there's anything else that, you know, could easily come and get it. So you don't know that it's a Bigfoot that came in.
Oh, we used to do some tricky things. Like we would put a heavy glass pie plate on it so that you had to have an opposable thumb to lift it up.
Gotcha.
We'd thought of that, you know, and sometimes they take it, you know, and sometimes it would just sit there and whatever. That was a long time ago. Yeah. I got another. So good ones and bad ones, right? So Chuck still takes reports for the BFRO. You know, him and Eminem had it out, and he thought he was going to fire him because Chuck didn't kind of tear the company line as far as the narrative goes anymore. But he didn't fire him, and so Chuck still has access to their back files and all that stuff, which is basically why he still does it. And he likes to collect the stories, you know.
Sure.
So there's a woman that lives out in Sholo, which is in eastern Arizona. It's kind of a rural area, beautiful, near the White Mountains. And she worked for the Forest Service, and she's a 35-year veteran for the Forest Service. She's a widow. Her name is Lorna. And she had filed a report with the BFRO because she was having things taken off of her property and livestock killed. And she had a ranch with horses and some goats and cows and chickens, and the chickens were getting their necks wrung and thrown into the yard. Like, it was really weird.
Wow.
So she started to think maybe there was something to the. She'd worked for the Forest Service for 30 years and didn't have a dog in the hunt. Never even really got into this thing, right? So Chuck and Kev went out and sat out on her. She had a huge piece of land, sat on her property, and they started getting some activity, and there was some mind speaking. It came to them that there was an older Sasquatch that resented this woman living on this land because they'd been there for hundreds of years for that family group. And take all this with a grain of salt, but this is my truth. So they kind of negotiated a deal, and it stopped. But as a result of it, this woman Lorna started being really, really susceptible to mind speak. And she started getting, like, this woman had never had anything like this happen in her life. And she started getting all this communication from, and she could, everywhere she went, she was getting it because she was had dialed into that frequency, and she was there, right?
Right.
So, two great stories. So, about a year and a half ago, she goes away to visit her mother in California, and she has a woman, she's got a travel trailer on the property that comes and takes care of her livestock while she's gone. So, it's a beautiful night, and there's a full moon. So this woman who's watching Lorna's livestock goes out and try and take some pictures of the moon, right? So she's got her cell phone out, and she's snapping shots along the tree line where the moon's just elevating above it. And then all of a sudden, she gets a huge rock thrown at her, right, out of nowhere. And this woman literally had never heard of didn't know anything about it. This wasn't her thing. So she runs back into her trailer, and these things literally terrorize her for the night, right? Like banging on the trailer and throwing things at it, and she's getting howled at and all this crazy stuff. I'll move this along. So she goes through her phone, and she calls Lorna and tells her what's going on. Lorna comes home. They call Chuck up. Chuck goes over there. So they go through this woman's phone, and she's all these pictures of the forest line. And then they get to this one picture, and it's, you ever seen like an old Pink Floyd set that had this like purple ring, electrical kind of fire behind the set? It was on. This woman takes I've seen the picture. This woman takes a picture. She caught a picture now, and a lot of people are saying, well, she caught a picture of a portal. Who knows if that's what that is?
Right.
But she definitely caught a picture of something she wasn't supposed to, right? And so Lorna got, we're sorry, that is normal. Like, that's what she took a picture of was normal. And then she got, please don't publish this. And that was the terminology that they used, because they offered to delete it off the phone and said, no, you can keep it, but don't publish it. So again, a Lorna story. And the last one I'm going to tell you is the best one. So Lorna still has a route out in the forest where she goes out and does her rounds out in Apache sick grease, which is huge. You know, she's got a regular roads back roads and forest roads that she travels, just kind of checking on fires and making sure everything's, that's her job. Right. She's got a couple spots that she'll go to relieve herself and go to the bathroom in. So one time she was pulled up in Apache sick grease, and she gets out of her Jeep and she runs over to go to the bathroom. And as she's sitting there squatting, doing her business, this is how she explained it. This like 10 by 10 video screen just kind of like 15 feet in front of her. And she watched a human in frontier attire from like the late 1600 trapper attire with a musket rifle stalk from left to right across this screen. And then it closes and disappears. And she gets this old woman's voice in her head that says, this is what I saw the first time I saw your people. Now we are receding. And that was the only communication she ever got from her. But it was such she said it's the voice sounded forlorn and sad and ancient. And it was just an incredible tale. And this woman, like, she don't have the ability to create something like that or just to fabricate something like that. I mean, that was the nature of it. Ever since like she contacted us, she's had all this crazy stuff going on, and some really great stories,
Wow.
Cool, right?
Mm.
Well, especially while she's going to the bathroom, like, wow.
I get exactly. That would be my optimal position, seeing something like that, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Because you're not moving. You're just like, I'm not moving.
Can you imagine? Like,
I don't know.
Revenant, you know what I mean? Like somebody looked like that, like DiCaprio from the movie where he gets mauled by a bear. Like that's what she said the guy looked like. Like a coonskin cap and just all like kind of fur for clothes, but like all hand stitched and stuff. Like she's pretty vivid about how she described it. I love that story. It's so cool, because it makes you really wonder, like if we've encroached. I don't believe these things need space like we need space, but I think that they gravitate towards places where we're not, so it kind of hits home to me. I hear people talking about, they have migration patterns. I don't think so. I don't think they need to do things like that. I think that they move around at will where they want to go.
Do you feel like they use the cave system and things like that?
I don't know. I'm really good friends with Mark Abel, and I don't know if you guys know who that is, but Mark has a YouTube channel. He's probably, I hear that term boots on the ground and it makes me want to puke. But honestly, this man has been out for 12 years living in a fifth wheel on a ranch in the Colorado Rockies and has probably got 2,000 videos and documentaries. This guy is literally the man. I'm really close to him. He's a different cat, but Mark has filmed these things walking in and out of caves, walking in and out of rocks, mesas, and I've seen enough of that, where they seem to have an affinity for the red rocks. They seem to have affinity for mountains, here's a great one. So we've been given a couple of names over the course of our career of what they say we can call them, and one of the common threads in their names is a lot of these names, not all of them, end with the suffix of gan, Gaan, right? And there's Terragan, there's Eadengan, there's a couple of them that have that. And so we thought that there's like a caste system, and the ones that have the gan are kind of like the elders or have a higher level of whatever they are. So about 2 years ago, we're walking through the museum in Payson. Chuck's a part-time curator there and a tour guide, right? Mm-hmm. And they have a whole section devoted to the Apaches that lived in the area. This is like where Geronimo lived. Like this is Apache country down here. And so the Apaches talk about the 4 sacred peaks, which are in Arizona. It's in the San Francisco Mountains. There's Mingus Mountain, and I can't remember all 3 or the other 4, but they talk about the spirits of the mountains that looked over the Apache people and were beings that they revered and somewhat worshipped and honored. And these beings were known as the Gan, the exact same spelling as these names of these entities that we're interacting with that live in the mountains. You know what I mean? So not that we look for a lot of validation, but that was really cool. That's not a coincidence to us, like the fact that Gan means something to them, and it's an Apache term for the spirits that live in the mountains that they worship and that they honor. That was really cool.
Wow. So you've been doing this kind of stuff a long time. Do you like put it out in the? You're on our show, but like people, just normal folks, do you let them know what you do?
You know what? If you know me, I'm really cautious still about it. For years, more years than not, it was such a fringe, taboo subject that I vetted anybody before it even came out. Even if you look at my social media, you'll never see anything on there about it. You know what I mean? Like my Facebook page, stuff like that. I really, I'm very guarded about it. You know what I mean? I was so guarded for years that even like participating in platforms like this was something that was just against my grain for a long time. But yeah, you know, like I sound people out, like, you know, like one of our guys, Chuck, like he'll literally, you know, if somebody shows up at a campsite or near where he'll go right over and hand them a Sasquatch business card. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not like that, you know. No, when I got married, this is a great one. So all the Arizona Four were at my wedding, you know, and it was about 100 people. And all my extended family and my wife's extended family. We got married in Prescott National Forest. And this, I mean, it was a whole, like, there was a Sasquatch bride and groom on top of my wedding cake. I mean, you know, there was a little couple of
there you go. Yeah.
Right. You know, so I got a bunch of like cousins from Philadelphia that are about as street as they're going to come, old school Irish, you know what I mean? And Chuck's walking around, handing around his Sasquatch. Literally, he has like his Sasquatch business cards for the BFRO. And I'm trying to, like, you know, do damage control during the entire reception. Like, oh my God, Chuck, not here. You know what I mean?
No, I get you, you know, but I guess I'm complete opposite of you, because I really don't give two shits what people think about me and what I do. You know, I don't.
I love that. I'm that way 99% of the time in my life. You know, I surround myself with people that are doing this, so it's never really an issue, you know. Like my wife, God bless her, like, our first date, she's like, so what do you do? I said, well, I'm a recovering heroin addict who's out looking for Bigfoot on weekends. And she said, okay, let's have a second date. I'm like, oh, you know. So.
Right. Yep. Is she a believer?
She's been out too many times to not be. She started out as kind of tolerant. And then she's had a couple of experiences that absolutely put her on the right team, man. You know, like, she's not a big camper. Which is great. I mean, you know, we got married a little bit later in life, and you know, we both kind of respect each other's hobbies and our friends, and you know, so she gives me a lot of breathing room with this stuff. But she goes out with me. She goes, I go out petroglyphing, like that's what we do together, because I hate hiking, but if there's like petroglyphs 6 miles in, we're going. You know what I mean? Like I do that a lot. There has to be a good destination for me. I've taken her out to some whack places, you know.
It's like, put your boots on, babe. Here we go.
Yeah, well, you know, I have one thing I know is that wherever there are petroglyphs, and I don't care where they are, there's activity 100% of the time. And I don't know. I used to think so. Like, there's petroglyphs that are, you know, the traditional hunting models, you know, and the ones that, you know, buffalo, and then you get these abstract designs, right? And I used to run on this theory, because I'd seen so many weird things in the rocks, you know what I mean, and mesas and in places where petroglyphs are found, that for a while, and I'm not so sure that it's not some truth to this, I used to think that these abstract designs were some sort of like Native American shaman glyph that were glyphs of power, and that they perhaps would keep those beings chained to that spot. You know what I mean? Because I've seen enough really, really bizarre, I don't just mean the Sasquatch, I mean just strange dimensional looking things that are always around these petroglyphs. It seems like that's where they are, but they're not really anywhere else. I always thought maybe that's what some of those designs were, that they had some sort of holy power or some sort of spiritual power that would confine maybe the things that shouldn't be moving around anywhere else but there to that place. Just a theory, though. I don't know.
Right. Right.
So my wife's cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Hi, Linda. She probably watches.
Support you for sure.
We'll wave to her.
Do what, Brandy?
I said, we'll wave to her. Hi.
Hi.
Yeah. See, my husband, he's not a believer at all. He calls
he's not.
He calls it my freaky shit.
A lot of people are wired to believe it. You know?
He does.
Yeah. So, you know, it's but he supports everything that I do, you know, because I'm gone a lot, you know.
That's important, man. Me too.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Linda and I travel a lot, you know. I mean, I've been down to Mexico about probably 7 times in the last 2 years. I've been to all, Chichen Itza and Koba and a lot of these really, really kind of remote ruins down there, because, that's a whole other thing, the alternative histories that I think we've been indoctrinated in, and the reality of what the history of Mesoamerica was and what it really is are so disparate to me at this point. And I love going down there and checking things like that out. We're supposed to go to Machu Picchu next year. We'll see. That's kind of on the bucket list, but we're plotting it now. And, it's awesome to have a partner to do those things and supports me too. I'm glad your husband supports you. If he's not a non-believer, that's okay. Something will happen one of these days, Kristen. He'll be like, "Oh my God, you are right."
Yeah. Oh, we just have this agreement. We also have horses, and he's an old cowboy. He was a bronc rider, the whole 9 yards. So he does his horse thing, and he goes on his weekend trips, and I do my freaky shit and do my weekend trip. So it's good. We get along great.
I love the freaky shit.
Yeah. Brandy knows.
There it is.
Long enough.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
It's just like my whole life's been freaky. So there it is. We're just going to go with that. So, I mean, it's like anybody that asks me, I tell them straight up front, hey, this is what I do. I mean, you can talk to me about whatever, and I'll be like, yeah, okay, yeah. You say something about ghosts, Bigfoot, aliens, and I'm like, here we go. Now yes, I'm listening. I'm listening.
We can be friends.
Yes. Let's say I don't like promote it.
Yeah.
To strangers on a regular, because let's face it. I mean, granted, people are a little bit more awake now than they maybe have been ever, but still, it's still
true.
Such a small segment of the population that's tuned into this and that knows that it doesn't. To me, it's like, it either upsets people or whatever. I don't like it. Now, if I hear something and I hear somebody chatting, or like I had some guy, I'm reading Bigfoot Unveiled at the pool, right? He goes, "Oh, what's that all about?" You know what I mean? So I kind of broke it down for him a little bit, and kind of gave me this dubious look, like, well, I obviously know better than you. You know what I mean? It's like that's what I see. I'm like, you can't snap these people into it. Not everybody has the same experiences that we've had. It's just the truth.
Right.
Who are we to judge it?
Exactly.
I don't judge anybody like that. I feel bad for them.
Yeah.
I do. I feel pity.
Yeah, absolutely. We've heard a lot of encounters that people have had, and I believe everyone I've heard, because I have had some crazy encounters myself that don't seem like, if I would tell a normal person, they'd be like, "You're full of it," But honest to God, it's the honest to God's truth. These things that have happened to me. So who am I to judge somebody who says, that they, do this or that with Bigfoot, or, been up in UFOs or whatever. It's not for me to judge,
I think one of the positive aspects of platforms like this and others, where we're having open discussion about stuff that was so taboo for so long, that a lot of these experiences and some really maybe critical knowledge just got buried, straight up buried. And when, we have a great audience here of 100+ people that are dialed in and listening. And you know what? That encourages me, and it kind of inspires me to be more outward with a lot of my own stuff. You know what I mean? Like I just feel like that's what my wife says. Like, what are you doing, man? Like Bettina once called me. She said, "You're worse than the Smithsonian." I said, "Well," I said, because you don't talk about any of this stuff to anybody. Who are you? What do you think you are, the Smithsonian? The Smithsonian? He still calls me that. Drives me nuts, man.
Right.
I don't want to be the
awesome.
Smithsonian. It's got to be in the right environment for me.
Yeah, no, and I totally I understand that, but you also gotta, like by you coming on this show and you going on Bettina's and Paranormal Roundtable, you don't know that, but maybe somebody else can relate to you, and you don't know
that happens. Number one, you're not plugged in here just looking for a dopamine hit. If you're a regular,
right
viewer, you're here because you've learned something, you've seen something, you've experienced something, and you might know something, and you need to, it validates us, and it opens up that channel of communication that was missing for a long time. Thank God you guys are here. I think of guys like Art Bell. You know what I mean? I'm sorry, but none of us are here having these discussions if it wasn't for a guy like Art Bell that was such an innovator and a crusader in bringing these things. I mean, Art was a crusty, grouchy effer, but you know what? There was nothing that was off the table. Where did anybody learn about David Paulides or some of these, Stephen Greer or some of these other topics if it wasn't for a nationally syndicated radio program where its stuff was brought out and they looked at them like kooks, Same with Linda Moulton Howe. We're not here doing this stuff without them. Like Eric Von Däniken is an author, or even Graham Hancock, or some of these other guys that had the courage to break this stuff out into the open and give us all an opportunity to open it up and look at it and say, I can identify with that. I've seen that. Yeah, that makes sense. Thank God for that stuff. And that's what you're doing, is a complete continuation of that, at a more personal level, where you can interact with your audience. A lot of these people. I know a lot of these names. I Jason Broussard. I see people on there. Amy Creel and Maddie. I've been lucky enough to have some online friendships with some of these guys, and I wouldn't have been able to do that if it wasn't for coming out of the Smithsonian.
Right. Right. Absolutely. There's a few questions here. Let's just start with one here.
You guys got me for 10 more minutes, and then I got to bug out. Maybe 15, but I have to be out of here in a little bit.
We can end it in 10 minutes. That's fine.
Cool.
We got it.
Spillin asks, if they have a soul, they have a personality. Just a thought. What are your thoughts on that? And meaning
I don't know, man. The soul thing. So let's say you're a human hybrid. Does that automatically entitle you to a soul because you're half human? I don't know. Or a third human? I just read Timothy Alberino's book, Birthright, it talks about Adam and man's dominion on earth. And it's a fantastic book. And he talks about this, where the corruption of the human genome has been the enemy's end game, right? With the introduction of AI, transhumanism. So Timothy will talk about, and he backs it up with a lot of scripture, which is take it, leave it, right? But the reality, what he talks about is that Adam was given dominion over the earth and stewardship from God, right? So if the enemy failed with the Nephilim and failed to, the great deluge, which wiped out most of that whole thing, and he says the enemy's been rebooting these attacks always. And what he says is that when you listen to the alien abduction syndrome, or you listen to the altering of our DNA by entities unknown, probably for nefarious reasons, at what point do you lose enough of your own genetic humanity to no longer have the dominion of earth as given to man? So do they have souls? I don't know. I mean, if the end game is transhumanism and that's where we're going for, and then AI, chips going into our brains or whatever that looks like, at one point do we lose enough of our humanity that we lose dominion over the earth? I don't know. And I don't know if these things have souls or not. I don't know. I mean, really a troubling question, isn't it?
It is.
You'd hope so. You'd hope that
I would hope so.
Right. That's a good question, though. Something that's troubled me, Absolutely.
What do you think, Brandy?
Yeah, Brandy.
Well, I would. I just said it. I would hope so. I would hope so. I would hope they have souls. I just can't imagine just any living creature not having one.
Agreed. I even my pets. You know what I mean? Like I've seen them. Kind of hoping I'm going to see a few of those dogs from back in the day if they ever let me in upstairs.
Well, I mean, my dog's got attitudes. I mean, They've got attitudes. They've got personalities. They've got to have a soul. They've something. They've got to have something. Yes, they've got to have a soul.
So, again, going back through a biblical standpoint, it wasn't just our man's genetics that were manipulated in the Bible. It was also animals. You know what I mean? So maybe there's a reason for that. I think, when it talks about in the Old Testament about, the Hebrew tribes being sent into Canaan to wipe out the Nephilim tribes that were living in there. And God's word was, go in there and destroy every man, woman, child, and beast, right? So that means that not just humanity, according to the story, was corrupted, but also the animal kingdom was also corrupted by these things, by this genetic manipulation that had gone on, So I don't know the answer to that, but it, asks a lot of questions, Those books have value because of what they are, and what they're saying. I don't know the answer to that, though.
Yeah, I'm like you. I believe that, like my pets all have souls. One's different, and their personalities, and it's just like people. They all act different. Some I like better than others.
Right.
How true is that?
Yeah, So I don't know. That's just my opinion, though.
I'd like to think that one of the life lessons that I've learned along the way is that, nothing external brings me happiness. Literally, money, drugs, sex, whatever that looks like. There's anything that's an external fix is shallow, right? So, I feel like, especially the last 3 or 4 years, like the more that I have sought to grow internally and become a better version of myself and a better human being, the more serenity and personal happiness I've ever had in my life. You know what I mean? I love that because it's kind of like, I wish somebody really hammered that home to me 40 years ago. You know what I mean? Saved me a lot of aggravation, But it's true, man. And I will also say, the more that I've worked on those things internally, the more my experiences have grown with the forest people in different ways. The stuff that I really believe that they vibe on that. You know what I mean? That not all of them, but what I'm dealing with, I really believe that they're very aware and they're very tuned into spiritual growth, personal growth, man. I mean, it's such a great journey. It's the best thing ever, right? It's the funnest, most challenging, and most rewarding and fulfilling thing I have ever done. You know what I mean? I'm really big on it. I don't always know what that road looks like either. It's not through organized religion. It's not, you know what I mean? It's more of just a gut instinct and feeling and seeing what I think is right and then paying attention to it. You know what I mean? Listening inside here instead of out there, I guess. I don't know what that has to do with anything. I just felt like saying it.
No, you're good. And honestly, after meeting you and talking with you, I understand where Wolf and Bettina and they really like you because you're one of the good guys. You really are.
Thanks. I appreciate that, Krista.
Absolutely.
I've enjoyed
Absolutely.
I'm grateful to be here. I always get that last second. Am I doing the right thing by doing this? I'm so we as a group, when we talk about what our publicly what some of our experiences we're always very cautious. I think the last thing we want to do is stroke ego. You know what I mean? And let's face it, sitting here, I got the gift of gab, man. I could really go into that and really build my brand. You know what I mean? And I don't have any desire to do that.
Yeah.
I like sitting here talking to two nice ladies and just having our conversation. That fulfills me. I know that if I would probably like it too much. You know what I mean? It's a reason I don't have my own YouTube channel and I don't that's the main reason. You know what I mean? Is that I don't think that's what God wants from me, man. You know what I mean? I don't think it increases my spiritual journey at all if I would invest that much energy and time into it. I think it would be a bad thing. And I'm not judging anybody that does. That
No.
is literally for me. You know what I mean? Because I know myself.
Mhm.
I know what that looks like.
Absolutely.
And I know that I could, it'd be like a drug for me, man. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
I get a thrill out of doing this. I'm not gonna lie about it. I enjoy it. I do. I just think it's a moderation thing.
Yep. I totally
Yeah.
understand. Totally understand. Well, we definitely appreciate you being on here tonight. And I know you got some friends you're going to meet up with tonight. So we'll let you go, and Brandy and I will finish the show. But thank you. And I'd love to have you back again sometime if Bettina will let you.
Right? She's like my gatekeeper for. I don't know how that happened. You know what I mean? I got to ring on one woman's finger. I don't need any of that. Guys, it was my pleasure. I'd love to come back on sometime.
Yeah,
And
for sure.
Awesome.
I'm going to try and get to one of these events of yours. Probably not the one that has to do with ghost hunting, but the next time, the Alabama thing, I need an excuse to go out there. Bettina's out there, and I have family on the East Coast. And Linda and I are coming.
She came to last year's, and I hope that she'll come over to this one.
I'm trying to get her out to Arizona this summer, but maybe next year. Maybe Linda and I are going to head back east anyway, probably around that time of year. I'd love to go. And if I do get an opportunity, I get to meet you guys in person. That'd be great.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And even
Ladies,
Martin Grove says, Chris Kramer is the man. Love ya.
Thanks, Martin. I appreciate you, brother.
Yeah, he's awesome too. We love Martin Groves ourselves.
Yeah, he's cool, man. You guys have a great night, and we'll talk soon.
You too.
Thank you again for having me.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you. Bye, Chris.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
That went by fast.
It did. I was like, and I'm all interested in what's happening, and I'm reading chat, and I'm like, okay. And I'm going back forth, and I'm like, wow, where'd the time go?
Right? I know. It just went
It
by
just
fast.
disappeared. I don't know what happened. I was like, oh my goodness.
Yeah, that was awesome. We appreciate actually it was Wolf that scheduled for Chris to come on tonight. So we appreciate that. But everybody, if you would, keep Wolf in your prayers. He popped in for just a minute, but he's not feeling the best. So
No.
saying some prayers for him.
So as you could tell, he just popped in, said hi, and that was pretty much it.
Right. So anyway, I want to thank Rich. Welcome. Spill and Tea. Thank you very much. Ernest. Thank you very much. Gary Spikes. We will see you in a month. Looking forward to that. And thank you for
Absolutely.
that. And BMR as well. Pancho Zorge. We'll be seeing him in 2 weeks. He's going to come hang out with us at Ashmore Estates.
Ashmore. Yeah.
So that's
excited.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Gwen Hunt. Appreciate it. Paranormal Paul. We'll be seeing him in a couple weeks as well. So thank you. Sugar Britches. You're too sweet. Too kind. Thank you.
He is too kind. Yes.
Maggie M10. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Maggie.
Yes. And our brother Bigfoot, Michigan Rob. We appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you. It
was an awesome night. It was an awesome show. It just went so by so fast. I was like, what is happening?
Yeah.
So we're going to have him on again. So that's just it. We're just going to have him on again.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. He's great. He's definitely great. I was trying to just read through chat real quick here. See if I missed anything. I don't want to miss any questions or anything. So anyway, no, I think I got them all. So we appreciate everybody tuning in. Oh, Erin, thank you. And Erin,
thank you, Erin.
I want to give a shout out to Erin. She has a niece that has been sick, and she could use some prayers. She's been in the hospital, in Children's Hospital, and they're trying to figure out what's going on with her. So she's a high school girl who is also good friends with my oldest daughter. So please keep Riley in your prayers as well. So, and thank you for that, Erin. Appreciate that. So anyway, tomorrow night, I have the night off. I have a work-related deal I'm going to do. But Brandy, you'll be here.
Yes, I will be here. We're going to have Bigfoot Michigan Rob and Paul Anthony on with me tomorrow night. Thank you, Amy.
Thank you, Amy.
And we are going to talk with Todd Neese tomorrow, and it's going to be all about Bigfoot. I'm sure it's all going to be about Bigfoot. So I'm excited. I mean, it's kind of like a panel show, but not a panel show. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, it's gonna be a good one.
I'm going to feel a little outnumbered though, Krista, because you're not there. I mean, I'm just saying.
I'll be there in spirit.
Yeah, but you know, you got to think about it. In the cryptid world, don't we feel outnumbered anyway?
Right. Yeah, I have we have my work is doing it's a work event, and you know, where I work, we help people like who can't afford to pay their rent or pay their bills. We help them pay. So it's a charity event tomorrow evening, and even the mayor of St. Louis is coming, I heard. So should be interesting.
Ooh.
Yeah, so it'll be fun. But anyway, you know, I'd rather my heart's still back here with all you guys.
Okay, now just to let everybody know, Paul has said he'll be wearing a blonde wig and a dress. We're going to hold you to that. Just saying. You're in.
Yes. That's funny.
You don't have to wear a dress, but a blonde wig would be okay.
Yeah, that'd be okay. Well, once again, we appreciate everybody tuning in. Look for us on Saturday at 2 p.m. members only. We're going to do members only live show. So that'll work.
Yep. See you tomorrow and see you Saturday.
Yep. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.